In a kingdom bathed by the morning sun, a story once told in whispers of jealousy and fear finds a new dawn. This isn't just the tale of Snow White as you remember it, but a journey to its end, where the shadow of betrayal fades, and the light of compassion heals, transforming a kingdom forever. It's a story of how true fairness is found not in a mirror's reflection, but in the heart's capacity for grace. Deep within the cold stone walls of her castle, a queen, wrapped in shadows and consumed by vanity, approached her most trusted confidant. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," she commanded, her voice a low hiss, "who is the fairest of them all?" She expected the familiar, soothing answer. But the mirror, an entity of unyielding truth, shimmered with a vision she thought impossible. Across the silvered surface, an image formed, a girl with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony, alive and well, nestled deep within the forest. "My queen, you are fair, it is true," the mirror's voice echoed, "but Snow White, living with the 7 dwarfs, is still 1,000 times fairer than you." A wave of fury, cold and sharp, washed over the queen. Betrayal burned in her eyes. The huntsman had failed her. If she wanted a task done right, she would have to do it herself, ensuring this time there would be no mistakes. The queen descended into the darkest chambers of her castle, a place where enchantments and dark potions simmered. There, she shed her royal guise, her beauty twisting and shrinking until the reflection that stared back was that of a stooped, wrinkled, peddler woman. Her disguise was flawless, her intent, venomous. In her gnarled hand, she clutched her masterpiece of malice, a single, perfect apple. Its skin was a luscious, tempting red on one side, a pale, innocent green on the other. But beneath its beautiful surface, the red half was seeped in a powerful sleeping potion, a curse so deep it mimicked eternal rest. With a wicked smile, she took her basket of wares and set off toward the forest, her heart a cold stone of certainty. "One bite, dear child," she practiced in her new, raspy voice, "and all your dreams will come true." The quaint cottage of the 7 dwarfs was a haven of warmth and safety. But that day, a shadow fell upon its door. Snow White, kind and unsuspecting, answered the knock to find a seemingly harmless old woman offering her wares. The woman's eyes twinkled with a hidden agenda as she held out the most beautiful apple Snow White had ever seen. "Just a taste, my dear," the old woman coaxed, her voice like cracking leaves. "A gift for your kindness." Remembering the dwarf's warnings about her stepmother, Snow White hesitated. Sensing her doubt, the old woman took a bite from the pale, green side of the apple. "See, perfectly safe," she rasped, chewing with feigned delight. Her fears assuaged, Snow White accepted the gift. The apple felt cool in her hand, its red side gleaming like a ruby. As it touched her lips and she took a single, fateful bite, the world around her began to blur and fade into darkness. The half-eaten apple fell from her grasp, and she sank to the floor in a deep, silent slumber. When the 7 dwarves returned from their day's work in the mines, their cheerful songs died in their throats. They found Snow White lying still and breathless on the cottage floor, their hearts shattered into a million pieces. They called her name, their voices choked with grief, but she did not stir. They wept around her, their tears tracing paths through the dust on their cheeks, mourning the loss of the gentle princess who had brought so much light and laughter into their lives. The sun seemed to have vanished from their world, leaving only a cold, unbearable silence. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, sharing in their profound sorrow. The dwarfs could not bring themselves to bury Snow White's breathtaking beauty in the cold, dark earth. She looked not as if she had passed, but as if she were merely in a deep, peaceful sleep. So, with heavy hearts and skilled hands, they crafted a coffin of the clearest glass, trimming it with silver and inscribing her name in golden letters. They laid her gently inside, surrounding her with the wildflowers she so loved. They carried the glass coffin to a quiet meadow on a hilltop, a place where the sun's first and last rays would always touch her. They took turns keeping watch, their grief a constant, silent vigil, hoping against hope for a miracle they didn't dare to name. For a long time, Snow White lay in her glass tomb, an emblem of frozen beauty. Seasons changed around her, but she remained untouched by time. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom, who had heard tales of the maiden who slept in the glass coffin, was riding through the forest. Drawn by the stories of her unparalleled beauty and the mystery of her slumber, he sought out the meadow. When he saw her, he was captivated. She was even more lovely than the legends described. His heart was filled with a deep, instant love and a profound sadness for her fate. With gentle reverence, He asked the dwarfs if he could have the coffin, promising to honor and cherish her as his most precious treasure for all his days. Moved by his sincerity, the dwarfs agreed. As the prince's servants lifted the heavy glass coffin to carry it back to his castle, one of them stumbled on a tangled tree root. The jolt was sharp and sudden. It shook the coffin, and the piece of poisoned apple, lodged in Snow White's throat for so long, was dislodged. A gasp of air filled her lungs. Her eyelashes fluttered, and slowly, her eyes opened. The first thing she saw was the concerned face of the prince, backlit by the soft forest light. The world returned in a symphony of birdsong and rustling leaves. She was alive. The prince, overjoyed, helped her from the coffin and explained what had happened. Looking into his kind eyes, Snow White felt a new story beginning. Together, Snow White and the prince journeyed back to her kingdom. As they rode through the castle gates, the news of her return spread like wildfire. The courtyard, once muted by the queen's cold reign, erupted in celebration. Villagers poured from their homes, their faces filled with disbelief and overwhelming joy. Flowers were thrown, bells rang out, and tears of happiness streamed freely. The kingdom, which had been living under a cloud of fear, felt the sun on its face once more. Snow White, home at last, was a living symbol of hope restored, a promise of a brighter future. Amid the celebration, Snow White learned of her stepmother's fate, but instead of the fire of vengeance, she felt only a deep well of pity. She understood that the queen's cruelty was born from a place of profound insecurity and loneliness. In her first act as the rightful heir to the throne, Snow White chose compassion over revenge. She sent a decree not of punishment, but of release. The queen, defeated not by force but by grace, was never seen again. Some say she vanished into the shadows she had so loved. A ghost in her own story, forever exiled from the warmth and light she could never truly possess. And so, a new era of peace and kindness dawned upon the kingdom. The wedding of Snow White and the prince was a celebration of love's triumph over hate, and of forgiveness's power to heal. The castle, once a place of dark enchantments, bloomed with life and laughter. The kingdom flourished, guided not by fear and vanity, but by the gentle strength and compassion of its new rulers. Snow White's story became a legend, a timeless reminder that the greatest beauty is a kind heart, and that happily ever after is something you build, one act of grace at a time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more tales from our enchanted library.